Hi, I'm Kristen and this is Scrap Fabric Love. Today I'm cutting up a pair of my husband's jeans in preparation for making yet another denim quilt. So I'm going to try and show you how I get the most fabric out of a pair of jeans as I can. So today I'm cutting up a pair of jeans. My reason for cutting up jeans is to make denim quilts, but even if yours is different, hopefully this will help. Tools I'm going to use are fabric scissors, rotary cutter, maybe, I'll show you that option, don't worry if you don't have it, a fairly sturdy seam ripper, and the ruler. That's not for measuring, that's just for keeping things straight sometimes. And I've also got a cutting mat. It's turned upside down because the other side is nasty and I'm too lazy to clean it. Key tools are the fabric scissors and the seam ripper. If you don't have the others, don't sweat it. So this is a pair of adult men's jeans, my husband's. They look fairly new, don't they? This is what the boy does. So this is what he does to them, and this is why I've been given them to cut up and make denim quilts. So denim quilts are my happy place, so I'm not gonna complain, but yeah, I wish he would rip less jeans. So here's where I usually start. So what I'm trying to do, because I make quilts and not necessarily a whole lot of other stuff with the jeans, I'm trying to get the most like yardage or big pieces of fabric out of the jeans as I can. But everything that I don't use, I sell on Etsy or eBay or something like that. So I don't want to cut through too many things. I want to keep the elements that I don't want, like the bottom cuff and the waistband and things, intact as much as possible so I can sell them on to somebody else who does want them. So I started the cuffs and I would cut them off. And I either cut this with just with some strong fabric scissors, usually just above that bottom hem seam line. And so I can sell that to someone. People will use them for various upcycling projects. Or if I want to go super quick, I will sometimes use my rotary cutter. I can just use this to steady the cuff of my jeans. I'm not really using it to measure, and I can just whack through it like that. It takes a bit of, that one takes a bit of, depending how thick your jeans are in the seams, that one takes a bit of push. So if that's an issue for you, then cut. Right, so that's my two bottom seams. They're going in the sale pile. Then most jeans, there's like a thick seam on the inseam. So this is the inside that goes up to the crotch and back down the other side. And then there's another seam here. So I don't always cut this one out. It's fairly easy to sew over with my machine, and it's also easier to pick apart if I want to. You can see if I just start pulling, that'll start separating. So I don't need to cut this one, but this one I'm going to try and get out whole all the way down one side and the other, because folk who do buy seams, and folk do because they want to make rag rugs and things, and you can like weave with them. They're cool. They want the longest seams possible. So there's a market for all sorts of different lengths of things and bits of jeans, but if you can sell extra long seams, people definitely buy them. So for this, I do generally cut because I want to get it really close and get as much of this fabric. I could use the rotary cutter, but it's more likely to slip, and this is easy enough. So I'm just going all the way up to the crotch area, which is where the fatal rip was. We have tried everything with jeans for my husband to get this not to happen. This is where it always happens, either along here or along here. We've tried loose jeans, tight jeans, stretch jeans, no stretch jeans, belts, no belts, and it all happens. I have told him maybe you should just wear trousers that aren't jeans, but he's wedded to them. Anyway, what I've done is just cut straight across. So this is, you can see this is the zipper area, and I'm just going to keep cutting down the next leg so I can keep this long inseam as long as I can to resell it later, and to get as much fabric out of the jeans as well. So anyway, if anybody has any worldly wisdom about why that keeps happening to my husband's jeans and what I can recommend to him, do put it in the comments. So I'm just going to go all the way down to the other side. Okay, so now we have denim skirt, I guess. Right, and I'm just going to do the same thing, but with the other side of that same seam. So I'm just going to cut this entire inseam right out. And if you are going to resell them, you generally bundle them and sell them by weight. So that's usually how it goes. So whenever you're watching this, just go search denim seams on Etsy or eBay and see what comes up, and then that'll give you today's market price, as it were. Okay, and there I am going over the crotch again. So that's where you might have just like a little tight, but if you've got extra sharp fabric scissors, it shouldn't be difficult to cut through that. All right. And you can, rag rugs, people use these for dog toys, all sorts of stuff like that. And I've actually got a few posts. I'll link, I've got another upcycling blog. So this video is going out on Scrap Fabric Love because I'm cutting these jeans up for quilting. But I did do an older video years ago.
But I do things a little bit differently now. But I did use a different kind of scissors back then. So if you don't have these, maybe have a look at that one.
Anyways, I'll put in the description of this video, that older video, and also some posts from Upcycle My Stuff with a whole bunch of different things you can do with old jeans. So if you're looking for projects for the bits that you're not using for a quilt or clothing upcycling or whatever else you do, you might get some, so you don't have to sell them. I'm just saying don't throw them out, is basically, there's definitely a use for the seams, and for anything in the jeans that you don't want, someone else will want it, I promise. Okay. So I've got that big seam out the middle, right? So the next thing that I want to separate from the jeans is really the waistband. Again, people will pay for these and use them again for rugs and things like that. So I've already cut through this inseam. So what I'm gonna do is cut up and around the, oh, this has got a name, hasn't it? You clothing makers would tell me, the zipper Heidi thing. And then I'm gonna go all the way around the waistband. So let me just put this here. I'm going to move this. I'm not using this right now. Okay, so I'm going all the way around this thing, whatever it's called. And then, so in here usually, let me turn it around, you've got a pocket. And then behind the pocket, there's lots of usable fabric. That's this here. So I like to save all of this for me. So everything below this pocket I want, but everything above here I'm going to include with the waistband just to keep it simple. But in order to do that, I need to separate this. So again, I could just pull the seam or whatever, but I'll just do this so that it's not attached to the fabric that I want. Okay. So then what I would do, and of course there's probably different ways to go about this, but this is what I would do, is cut as close to that as I can and then cut around this stitch line around the pocket, and that will take the lining of the pocket with it as well. Most people who use the waistbands don't want this bit, but they, you know, they'll go ahead and cut it off themselves if you sell it that way, or you can cut this and save this little bit of fabric here. This could be useful for something. But, and then as I said, I'm not cutting this seam. You could make this 2 big panels if you don't want to retain this seam in the leg. But what I'm going to do is cut up here, and I'm going to cut, so this is the back now, so let me just show you. So this is the back, where the back pockets are. So I am going to include in the waistband for whoever's going to get this, everything above here. So I'm going to cut along this stitch line. I could separate that, sell that seam separately, but I just, you know, I don't need that much work. So, and there is obviously little usable bits of denim in there. So it depends what you need. If you need smaller cuts like that for whatever you're doing, you could obviously go ahead and cut those apart as well. So I'm going to cut that. And I'm just going straight across again. this big. This is probably the thickest, biggest one. And you just gotta get through it. There we go. Okay. And then it's the same on the other side with this. So I want to just cut this lining of this pocket away from the rest of the jeans. Okay, and then, where was I? Over here. And then, again, I'm just following the, where you stick your hand in the pocket, that seam line there. All these technical names, I'm sure they all have names, eh? But I don't make jeans, so, right. And then I'm gonna go all the way around and get as close to the waistband here as well. And then I'm gonna go back down the other side of the zipper. Okay. Oh. Right, so let me just show you what I've cut out. So this is the waistband, right? So you could, some you know, clothing upcyclers, this would be enough. They could attach something else and make this, turn this into a denim skirt or some other kind of trousers and stuff like that. So I would just sell it like that, basically. So I usually have, when I am selling things, I usually have a listing for waistbands and a listing for seams. And I used to have listings for pockets, but now I'm keeping the pockets. So that's one thing I've changed since the last video. So anyway, so this is the bit that I'm not keeping, and I will put them over here. And this is the rest of the jeans. So the other thing that I do is separate the two legs. So I'm gonna get rid of this back, this thicker back seam that's in the middle of the butt area, right? And I'll put that in the sell pile as well. And you could absolutely do this with a rotary cutter. I possibly would if I was like, sometimes I set up my cutting mat on the floor watching TV in the front room, and I will, if I want to do it quickly, I might do it with a rotary cutter. But I do find the scissors a bit easier. You do have to apply a bit more pressure with the rotary cutter, but whatever tools you've got, use those. Okay, so now I've got two great big leg panels. Let me just show you. Probably can't see. I might have to widen the view on the camera so you can see this whole thing. So this is the whole leg panel. So it's quite a lot of fabric. And as I said, you can choose whether or not to remove that seam. You can include it in quilt blocks. It's not as thick as that outer seam. You could, you know, trim off bits of this, or you can just separate it and have two different bits. I am going to measure and try and give you an estimate of how much fabric is in these jeans, although obviously it's going to depend what size of jeans you're cutting up. But before I do that, I'm going to work on the pockets. So depending what you're doing, you can leave these on, but I generally don't want them in my quilt blocks that I make. But now I am saving them. So I'm going to use them for something else, because they are actually, I thought for a long time, I thought they were really hard to sew through, but they're actually not that difficult. So I'm thinking of another project with them. So for now, I'm not selling them. But if you want to sell them, there is a market for them completely cut off, and there's a market for them with some fabric around it for people to stitch things to. So however it's easiest for you to do it, you can sell those on if you don't have a project for them. But there are plenty of things you can make with them. And again, I'll put a link to a couple of projects in the description for this video. So what I do is I take my seam ripper and I get to work on the most reinforced bit, which is the bit up at the top of the pocket. I have seen people take these off with like razor blades, like, you know, the single little rectangular ones, like that I don't know, when did they use them in barbershops? I'm not sure, but anyway, I don't have those and they scare me. So so I'm just doing it with the seam ripper. And once you get this big double ones up at the top off, the rest of it comes a bit quicker. So this is probably the most annoying bit of cutting up the jeans, is the pockets, kind of. But and if you can't be bothered, as I said, if you just cut around them as close as you can, someone will be interested in buying that from you. Not me, but somebody else.
Speeding this bit up because it's just about 30 seconds of me stabbing at those super strong stitches right at the corner of the pocket. Once you get them open, it's much easier.
All right, so I've got that tough corner on there, off there, sorry. And then here it's just 2 seams, so I can just hold it. So I'll put my hand in the pocket kind of thing, I guess, and then and hold a bit of it here to keep it taut, and then just run the seam ripper down there. So I'm kind of holding it like that, if that makes sense. And then it's just a case of, so that was 1 seam there, and then I've just got 1 more that I got to rip through. And you can just pull if it's coming. All right, I'm gonna do that just at the corner, right. And it's just the same again. That one doesn't want to pull, so I'm gonna use the seam ripper. And now I can pull a bit. There we go.
So I've been mentioning a lot about selling the bits of the jeans you don't want. Of course, if you know another crafter who would want them, just donate them. But if you do want to learn about how to sell either bits of jeans or other stuff from your sewing room online, I have a video on my channel all about how I cleared out my sewing room a couple years ago and the money that I made selling on some of the stuff I wasn't going to use. So I go through the whole process of selling online and how you go about that. I've also got videos for all the denim quilts that I make. So the links to those will be in the video description box for this video. As well, I'll also include one that a lot of folk like about how to buy cheap fabric for quilting.
Okay, and then I just have this again, this one, they reinforce it up here. So I'm just gonna pick at it like that. I would love to hear in the comments what you do with your jeans. You might not all be quilters necessarily if you just landed on this video randomly. On this channel, I generally make scrap quilts. A lot of the time they do include jeans, but not always. So I would love to hear what you're gonna make with your jeans that you came here to cut up. And if there's any fun projects that you make with the pockets or the seams or the buttons or anything cool like that. That is the most annoying bit, right, but there. So now I've got my pocket separate, so I can use that for something, and I probably am, so I'm gonna save that. And then I've got the nice piece of denim underneath, albeit little, probably teeny, it's a little bit frayed at some of the pocket areas. And the color is obviously discolored, but you know, you can use that as a design feature. So anyway, so I'm gonna do the other pocket, and then I'm gonna measure how much fabric I got out of these jeans. So there's my other pocket, and here's my other leg. And now I'm going to figure out how much fabric I have in each pant leg. So what size is this? This is 36-inch waist, 91 centimeters long. Why do they do different measurements for different bits of the jeans? I don't understand that. Anyway, it's a tall 40-ish year old man's jeans. So they're large. They're very extra large, probably extra large jeans. Let's call them that. So we're calling these extra large men's jean legs. Right, okay. So I'm not going to count these little, what do you call them? The wings where you, these are the bits that jut off. I'm not going to count those just because it makes it easier if I just measure from here to here. So 19 inches, we're going to call that, by 36, right? So I'll have, and there's a little bit of extra. So 19 inches by 36 inches per leg, plus the little weird, jutty floppy bits.
We're not far off of about a half a yard of fabric per trouser leg.
And one side of the leg is also wider than the other. So this one is like almost 10. And this one, if you don't count the seam, is like 7. So if you don't like the seam in the middle, you've got maybe different lengths that you can get out of these. But that is how I cut it into just a big piece of fabric. And now I can cut into this to make quilt blocks or background fabric sections for different types of quilts that I do. So I hope it's useful for whatever your project is, and please do let me know what you're going to make with your jeans. I'd be so interested to hear. So I hope that was useful. If you like scrap quilts, and especially denim quilts, I hope you'll consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks so much for spending time with me. Bye.